Good evening, everybody. This is going to be a very important series, something that I was thinking about for a little bit, and I decided to do it because I think this is going to be quite educational for what I believe is coming. And I've talked about this individual before. I did a video on the book. It's on the subject itself. It's Saif al-Adel. Saif al-Adel, who's also known by his real name, Mohamed Salah al-Din al-Halim Zaidan. His nom de guerre is Saif al-Adel. And for those who are not familiar with Saif al-Adel, Muhammad Salah al-Din Halim Zaidan is a former militant from the Egyptian Islamic Jihad. He is the undeclared de facto emir of Al-Qaeda. He was actually, like many in the Egyptian Islamic Jihad, he was previously an Egyptian army officer and fought against the Soviets during the Arab-Afghan War. Um, he was an original member of the Majlis al-Shura in Al-Qaeda and headed the organization's military committee since the death of Mohamed Atef in 2001. Mohamed Atef took that position when Abu Ubaid al-Banshiri was killed. Um, it's alleged that he is currently living on the border of Iran as well as Afghanistan, and he tends to fluctuate between these two countries. He was actually a colonel in Egypt's al-Saqqa forces in the 1980s, and he was arrested in that mass arrest of Indian investigation into the assassination of Anwar Sadat. And al-Adl had been a member of the Maktab al-Kidbat in 1988. So he's got a lot of history with Al-Qaeda. And he wrote a book in September of 2024 called 33 Strategies of War. This series is basically going to be about the chapters in that book. And I would like to get ahead of this because if nothing comes from it, then there's no harm in reading this. You come away with a little bit of understanding, of the mind of Al Qaeda and terrorist networks and how they operate. Saif al-Adel is moving away from a traditional jihad sort of sense that Abdullah Yusuf Azam had implemented, basically an offensive war. Saif al-Adel is promoting a new type of battle, a new type of war, and that is specifically concentrating on being flexible and building relationships with other jihadist groups like ISIS Khorasan, uh, Jaish-e-Mohammed, or the Islamic State in Levant, or Al Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, and with other nation states friendly or sympathetic to the ultimate goal, which is the destruction of the West. And this video series will be me reading chapters from the book and giving my own thoughts during the reading of the book itself. Now, in the first chapter we're going to read, it's basically called The Strategy of Bringing the Fox Out of Its Lair. It's 10 pages, but I'm not going to read the whole 10. I'm just going to read some of it because this will tell you about the mindset of the new jihadist that currently is existing in Syria, in North Africa, and in Afghanistan. Jihadists' mentality has changed from a more traditional platonic war to a war of spirituality, a war of attrition, a war which sees an enemy that is so disseminated by ideology that you would think that Saif al-Adel had lived in the United States. It's a fascinating book, and you can get it on Amazon, actually. It was published in English. And well, originally it was in Arabic, but it was later translated to English. And I feel that, this video's, my thoughts about an upcoming terrorist attack inside the United States. And I'm willing to say that this will be within the next 12 to 14 months. And unlike with 9/11, we've had threats and warnings, but now we're better prepared. And yes, we're almost at the 25th anniversary. And, we are not having any attention paid to the growing threat of Islamic extremism, and we are currently supporting them. I mean, we lifted sanctions in Syria, and we're giving tens of millions of dollars to the Afghanistan government, which is headed by Sirajin Haqqani, and the Taliban run the country. And you have 12 provinces right now, currently in Afghanistan, that are hosting Al-Qaeda training bases. 12. They're bigger than ever before, and they're far more dangerous because, unlike bin Laden and Dr. Ayman Zawahiri, the leadership of Al-Qaeda was never declared, and they are not giving out media interviews. They're not letting you know what they're thinking. This makes them far more dangerous. Remember, they have a country full of weapons that we left behind in 2021 when the United States absconded its 20-year war. So the reading of these chapters are going to better prepare you about the mindset of jihadists currently and their intentions for war with the United States. Now, as you can see here, the strategy of bringing out the fox of its lair, provocation. That the Islamic fundamentalist will try to provoke you into fighting without fighting. Now, that's Bruce Lee's methodology. The art of fighting without fighting, Jeet Kune Do. And Bruce Lee was considered a pariah. Traditional martial artists considered him a heretic. Yet he was right, that one should learn every discipline to be a better fighter. Isn't that what the UFC and MMA has taught us? Remember when Royce Gracie was winning his first number of UFCs? Right now, he would get destroyed by the number 20th ranked fighter in the bantamweight because he knows many disciplines as opposed to Royce Gracie only knowing one. So provocation. And look what it says here. You cannot fight effectively unless you identify your enemies. Learn how to bring them out and out of their hiding places. Secretly declare war against them. Do not be naive. Some enemies are never reconcilable, and there is no middle ground. Seek help from God and do not despair. The obstacles you face are neither nature nor other people. The only obstacle before you is yourself. If you feel confused and lost, if you lose your sense of direction, if you cannot distinguish between friend and foe, you blame yourself. Fundamentally preparing the individual to witness only two areas of distinction, and that is himself and the enemy. The enemy could be an atheist. It could be a polytheist. It could be a Jew. It could be a Christian. It could be a Shia Muslim. But the Salafist, the jihadist himself, goes by what? The ideologies of those in his worldview. For example, aren't we seeing this in the United States? This book is amazing because it talks about the hypocrisy and the acidic ideological constructs that are hurting society. We're seeing it with many facets in religion and politics, most specifically, but with sexism as well, and racism. And here, Saif al-Adel is telling the reader that the war does not begin with the platonic enemy. It's within himself. Because if he knows who he is and his goals are defined before him, well, he is at war with everything else. And the enemy, and the weakness of the enemy, is one who doesn't know himself. Confusion leads to violence. And isn't that the case with our government? That we go to war with specific countries because we fear their culture or that they will not be friendly to the West? This is why the United States is suffering from within. No matter how large the military force, if it loses its spiritual energy, it will collapse. Only those who have steadfast hearts and the ability to inspire others can save the situation. Returning to war or saving each other leads to the other. What matters is that the decision to return is filled with enough motivation to ensure the success of the mission. Here, the characteristics and psychological strengths that God has granted individuals become apparent. During war, to go back and save one of your own, to help one of your own, to fight the war ahead. It's a constant jihad. That's the nature of jihad. And that's what the original intention of jihad was. It's not a war, outward war that Abdul Yusuf Azam promoted. Islamic jihad is the battle of good and evil in the hearts of men. And this is where Saif al-Adel is wrong, because to him, he thinks he's doing good. But remember what Jesus says to Barabbas: those who live by the sword will die by the sword. And Saif al-Adel is a victim of this, because he is a victim of what? Ideology. So many billions of people are. So I want to skip and show you the most important part of the chapter of this book, of this chapter. I'm sorry, this chapter. Now, this is the preface of chapter 1, provocation. Okay, here, read along with me. Most countries and empires have survived throughout history and continue to compete for leadership. Boy, that's the obvious, right? The battle to stay as the first world, the domineerance. And that's what Carter's national security advisor wrote, Zbigniew Brzezinski, in the Grand Chessboard. For the United States to remain the superpower, the Soviet Union needs to be defeated. And we need to control Eurasia, to control the pipelines. Two main factors that are important are the way society is connected and the unity and cohesion it creates, and justice that preserves the security and existence of the people. If both of these factors are provided, people can endure hunger and thirst. However, if either of these elements is lost, politicians are forced to create an external enemy to unite the nation against it. Boy, that's true. Otherwise, the result will be the collapse of unity and the dissolution of internal cohesion, leading to internal conflict over power. Meaning, Saif al-Adel is, this is incredible, because we're seeing this in the United States currently at more, and I'm 55, soon to be 56, and I've never seen the country so inherently divided by constructs, because of the true problems. The real problems are not whether he's a Democrat, whether he's a Black person or a white person, or whether he's Democrat or he's a Jew or a Muslim. The real problem is fundamentally within our system of government. The rents are rising, and it's affecting everybody. It's not just affecting the Republicans or the conservatives. It's affecting Democrats too, and socialists and communists and every other ideology behind and every other worldview. We share this in common. Why aren't we uniting against the very people who are creating this problem in the first place? What about rising inflation rates? We have no cohesion. And, Saif al-Adel, it seems like a prophet here, but he's writing the obvious because he's on the outside looking in. We can't see it because we're so possessed. We're so victimized, ideologically victimized. And we see each other as the enemy. So we're easy to defeat. And that's what al-Adl is alluding to in this book. At this time, the West has succeeded in creating a substitute for internal conflict through electoral competition. The change becomes one of the faces rather than real change, because playing the role of the opposition is better than being the victim of internal conflict. That's why there's a Republican-Democrat party. But yet, there's no such thing as left and right. They're the same thing. Secondly, the West has always succeeded in distracting and calming its people by creating an external enemy and magnifying it. In this way, politicians temporarily ensure internal peace and do not ask them to solve internal crises. as there are threats from enemies lurking, such as the Soviet Union, Islamic movement, Russia, China. God, how come he sees this and we have analysts, human rights analysts, very few that could see it? How come the media isn't talking about this? Because they want the division. The fifth column wants its division. Otherwise, with the presence of brave and provocative individuals like Thatcher and Trump, provocative individuals, yes, the seeds of division are sown. And as soon as the waters of their internal differences nourish it, unity and cohesion of the country disappear, as clearly seen in all unions, Europe, America, and Britain. And this is an Islamist writing the obvious. He's seeing right through to us. We're easy to attack because we are drowning in debt, because we are drowning in a despotic healthcare, the lack of real creative education, the lack of unity, the lack of cohesion. We are more divided than we've ever been before in my whole life. We are ripe for an attack here in the States. This is the reason why I say the next 12 to 14 months. Worse still are the Arab politicians who spare no effort to break the unity of the Ummah and dismantle its internal cohesion to the benefit of the external enemy, meaning the West. They play with the emotions of their nations and have exhausted them in meaningless disputes, such as the sons of Zayed and Salman in the Gulf did to tame Qatar. And they made a sports event the starting point of hostility between the residents of the Arabian Peninsula while hiding what lies behind the scenes. Fucking A. Look at Saif al-Adel. Yes, a terrorist can speak legitimately. This is the reason why I always tell you to listen to them. Read about them. I'm not agreeing with Saif al-Adel's, future endeavors in attacking the United States through violence, but you've got to know the mind of that which is attacking you. How else are you going to defeat them? I mean, we bombed Iraq and we bombed Afghanistan. How did that work after 9/11? And in the far west of the Ummah, sharp rhetoric between Morocco and Algeria is maintained, while there is silence and indifference regarding the liberation of Setula and Melilla from the Spaniards, not to mention the sports competitions that cause enmity between nations. On one hand, it mobilizes nations in a futile competition, yeah, agreed, and exhausts their emotions. And on the other hand, it tears nations apart with imaginary enmities to distract them from internal crisis. Yes, I agree with this. We're more passionate about the Yankees or the Mets here in New York than we are about how Governor Kathy Hochul and the prospect of socialist mayor in Zandani are going to fix problems. They're not. They're continuing them. And if we ever got together, us, the rich, the left and right, and those of the rich and poor, we could probably get somewhere. But we're so fractured that we're basically going to be in a state of catharsis, immobilization. And that's exactly where they want us, confused and imbued with belief. This type of entertainment diverts the nation's attention from the betrayal and servitude of their rulers. Bingo! Bread and circuses, right? Just like the Roman Empire. If the taxes are too much, we can always throw in 3 Jews to be killed by the lions. I mean, even a terrorist can see the problems of the United States. And, here, let me talk about this part here, right? 2 swords never meet in the same sheath, just as 2 beliefs cannot coexist in one heart. A nation should not be governed by mixed methods. The path of political and military conflict should be clear and unquestionable, without fear of opposition. Wars keep us vigilant guardians of our faith, and without war, there is no opportunity for victory and conflict. With victory, we will earn the dignity and respect of our people because we are sincere in our call. We made what we believed in was victorious, and we stood firm upon it, meaning that the delusions of the Islamist is that they're fighting on behalf of the minority of the Muslims. Meanwhile, these are the biggest killers of Muslims. Because as you could see in Syria, The leader of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, also known as al-Nusra Front, also known as al-Qaeda in Syria, is currently killing who? Alawites, Sufis, Shias, and Christians. The biggest killer of Muslims outside the United States and the coalition partners are Muslims, Salafists, or jihadists. They are known as jihadists. And where does their fundamental foundation of their ideology come from? Wahhabism, which originated out of Saudi Arabia. Does anyone here who's watching these videos still believe that Saudi Arabia is an ally? And look what they're doing to their own in terms of the education, the sciences. Those who are moderate to the Salman family and not, showing fealty, they're treated like common criminals. Some are even secretly executed. As long as they don't make the paper, because they've been in the paper for far too long for 9/11. Calm it down. But behind the scenes, there are sympathizers within the Salman family line, as well as others called the Sudari Seven, the seven sons of Ibn Saud. Thousands of princesses. There's a good percentage of these sympathizers that are, sympathetic to the cause of the Islamist. Because the foundation of Islamism comes from them. Wahhabism. Seeking friendly solutions with a powerful enemy leads to destruction. Do not think that he will remain loyal to his commitment so that he will not cross the established lines. The powerful know no red lines and accept no equals. They enter the arena with soft or how power and create crisis to pull you into their circle. Once you enter their domain, you will move according to their rules and be trapped in their snares with no way to escape. You should not consider yourself clever in the trap of deception. The enemy only wants your absolute submission. In other words, he's calling the United States as a materialistic mindset, one that is not wholesome or pious or pure to their definitions, right? To the Islamist definitions, which is perverse anyway. But nevertheless, there's some truth to this, that the United States is wholly transfixed with how to get ahead, how to take advantage of somebody. And this is not a condemnation of the United States as a whole or its culture. Right now, we're very sick people, and it shows. But our government is morally corrupt, the entirety of it. And this is what he's talking about. Do not make friends with them. Conflict is an essential part of life. This is the end of the chapter. Even before life is given to a human, person learns from their enemies, and often the enemy inspires the appropriate strategy for conflict, meaning that the Islamist is reading us, we're giving him signs of how to attack us. The mere existence of an enemy and the preparations for conflict make us alert and prepare us to adhere to our beliefs, values, principles, customs, and cultural heritage. This makes our society stronger, our system more stable, and our capabilities greater. Wars strengthen our spirit and physical power, make us mentally more prepared and better equipped to face challenges. In other words, the Islamist doesn't think that the United States populace is strength. It's strong. Now, in other chapters, they talk about how ideologies, specifically sexism, are making, men more effeminate and not, not prepared to take on, aggressive males, right? That they lean on technology too much, analytics, instead of the bare, primitive motions of ourselves, which is needed in war. Conflict provides us with a measure to evaluate our abilities and forces us to assess and improve ourselves, and encourages us to strive in all areas of knowledge to keep our nation advanced in all spheres, including social, political, economic, technical, and generally in civilization. And that's correct. See, the first chapter talks about provoking the enemy, to read the enemy, and to better prepare the Islamists in attacking them. This is going to be far different than 9/11 in that, we had 19 hijackers who hijacked 4 planes. But the reality was there was far more. And because we had a stand down, which means that the modes for attack were limited. And if you look at failed plots in the past, you had plots that would far exceeded 9/11, Pachinko plot being one of them, which was the hijacking of 10 American airliners while putting bombs on 10 American airliners, 12 American airliners, and have them all explode over the Pacific within a minute of each other. They were going to hijack 10 American airlines and crash them all over the intercontinental United States. They were going to assassinate the President Bill Clinton. And then later they changed it to Pope John Paul II. You had the landmarks plot. Omar Abdel Rahman, El Said Nosser, who was the originator of the plot, El Said Nosser. People tend to forget that they wanted to attack the Jacob Javits building, the Brooklyn Bridge, George Washington Bridge, Empire State Building, World Trade Center. And then later on, they wanted to build a bigger bomb and used it against the World Trade Center. Ideas, Millennium Plot, which was a transnational plot to blow up hotels in Jordan, attack Jewish neighborhoods, and to blow up Los Angeles International Airport, and to attack a U.S. warship, the Sullivans. These are all going to come into play. The next terrorist attack will be urban terrorism. And this is what the book alludes to. It's not talking about how to, prepare in one area. It's about the preparation of other areas. And it talks about a physical strategy, a mental strategy, and a spiritual strategy, a technical strategy, analytical strategy, and a strategy of winning a fight without fighting. Here. Are we prepared? Take a look around you. We're not. So the time is soon that we are going to expect a terrorist attack inside the United States, which will provoke us to commit to a reaction that is going to be predictable to the eyes of the Islamist. Now, play, conspiracy minded for a minute. Who else would know about this? The intelligence services, just like with 9/11, we have plenty of intelligence before 9/11 happened and we could have stopped it. Is that the case here? Or do we really lack intelligence and we can't stop what's coming, which makes this so much worse? I don't know what to tell you right now. Right now, it's all a guessing game. And the goal of my channel is to better educate you and better prepare you about what's coming. If nothing comes from this, I just look like, an aging fool. And I'm paranoid. But if you take a look at what the United States has been conducting, specifically in Gaza, which is being used, films coming out of Gaza are being used in these madrasas in Afghanistan. And that's coming from the latest intelligence from the international community, the international intelligence community. I'm not making that up. There was a specific article that talked about this. It was Bill Roja, one of the best terrorism experts in the world. And, they talked about this because, the threats are there. And the latest United Nations Analytical Support and Sanctions Monitoring Team, and I read this in a video to you, the document itself talks about how they're manipulating the minds of young men and women to join the jihad against the United States by showing them videos coming out of Gaza. Now, if you're, a Muslim living in, say, Iraq or Afghanistan or Libya or Syria, and you saw what the United States has done in those countries, you just gained an ally against the war against the West. And we're talking about the last 20 years, which is far worse than anything we've had in the 20 years prior to 9/11. Much more Muslim deaths this time around. So that'll be the goal of this channel and the goal of this reading of this book, because Saif al-Adel's book, The 33 Strategies of War, are now the new jihadi text. Just as we saw with Saif Imam al-Sharif, Dr. Fadl, and Abdullah Yusuf Azam, and Muhammad al-Maqdisi in Jordan, with their calls of declarations of jihad against the United States and how to attack it using these specific military strategies. All right, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in. See you next video, everybody. Take care.